Okay, so I am going to just kind of record step by step for each step in the process of Project 4, just kind of as an example, so I can show you how I would go through it as I'm doing the project alongside you, and maybe give you some suggestions or ideas for how you might organize your workflow. So, I have decided that I want my interesting statistic to be on the cost of childcare. This comes from just some like personal interests in following the news and hearing some background discussions of how this has been increasing rapidly recently. And so I thought that would be an interesting thing to convey through motion graphics since a lot of folks don't, read or follow the news as closely. So I thought that motion graphics was a interesting medium or perhaps a useful medium to spread this to a wider audience. So the first thing to do is to start to like gather that information. And so some of the facts that I'm pulling are from podcasts that I've listened to with sociologists or economists. So a few of those are listed in here. And then because I wanted some hard numbers, I was thinking that I wanted to make this a very typographic animation so that I could work with simple shapes and infographics in a way that was easy to animate. So I went out and searched for some more specific numbers and made note of those and pulled some various charts. There's one here from Axios that has it as a consumer price index. And then I just sort of did the math and transferred that to dollar values. The way that I do that, you can throw all that stuff straight into your process book or into a slide deck as you work. I keep some running notes just in a notes document as I work, but obviously everyone has their own working methods for that. Okay, so after I pulled that information together, it was time to start looking at what this might look like. And I had some ideas of how I might do it, but again, I was thinking I wanted it to be very typographic. So the first thing to do would be to think about, whether it's text or whether it's spoken, what would that script be of the actual words that are on screen or spoken aloud so that I can come up with visuals to go behind that. So I wrote this, it's just a few sentences. I was thinking each kind of paragraph or line here is its own scene in the motion graphic, and that way I can kind of break these apart into how would I show this, how would I show this, and kind of work in that way. I wrote this before I had pulled actual numbers or when I couldn't recall the actual numbers, and so you can see I have some just placeholder percents and dollar values in here that I was going to go back and fill in as I needed to. So using that script, I started to sketch out some potential storyboards. Thinking here, I know this probably looks like chicken scratch, but this is kind of just my thinking process. How this starts in kind of not frame by frame, but as sort of a storyboard. How are these elements entering the screen, and how am I getting from one place to another? So you can see here I'm exploring some of the type on the screen and then how I want to show the increase. Do I do that with an arrow? Do I do that with a line graph? Do I start piling up these dollar sign icons and just exploring a little bit? I decided I liked the dollar icon or dollar sign idea a little bit, and I wanted to explore kind of transforming the text into that. And so I did some frames over here of that on the screen and then kind of multiplying, and perhaps there being a camera rotation and then the arrow coming out from that horizontal that's created. In the end, I don't think I'm going to do that, but you can see this process of kind of storyboarding and getting from one scene to the next is really what I'm trying to think through here. So from here, I decided to jump into some design boards and to actually start looking for the styles. And so I didn't do a style frame, but I did go through that exploration process. So I started with the typography since that was such an important part of the style I wanted to go for. So I explored a few different type combinations and landed on the combination between source serif and source sans. I really like DM Sans. I think it's very clean, but the reason I went with the source is because there's a little more contrast in here, and so it looks a little friendlier, and this looks a little bit more like techie. And because we're talking about families and talking about child care, I wanted it to look a little more human, and so I went with this. From there, I started looking at some colors. I was thinking like a dark blue, kind of like a warmish blue would be a good primary color to work with, so that it's kind of calming and also spacious, and the cooler color can fall into the background and really push that type in the infographics up front. So I was thinking of working with a monochromatic palette mainly, and then I threw in some neutrals and some warmer colors here as accents if I need them. I'm not sure that I will, but I wanted to have them just in case. And so from there, I started to put these things together just to see what they look like, and landed on this lighter blue as kind of the main color that I would use on the dark blue background. But you can see the different explorations here, and I actually think I like this bright yellow as a call out if I do use it. So from there, I took my storyboards and I took my kind of style decisions, and I moved into creating some design boards. So this is what a design board should look like, or might look like, is thinking kind of scene by scene, moving through this animation, how is this going to work? And so I have this opening text come on, I'm calling it a title card or an intro, but I have this coming on here, transforming into these dollar signs, and then multiplying, and then thinking about that camera rotation and sort of moving to a new empty space. Moving into the second scene, which is going to be a line graph showing the increase in the cost. Swiping out, so deciding to change the background color from one scene to the next to show that transition, and to also include some repetition with variation there. And to move into a donut chart that starts to talk about what that dollar value means as a percentage of household income. After talking about that, we'll move back to the line graph. So we're going to move in the other direction so that we're orienting the viewer in space. They're kind of building a mental map here. And then compare that to what some other countries are doing out there to show the kind of the wide gap between what the US is paying and how some other countries with some more social safety nets are paying for child care. And then ending on kind of the same note we started on to tie it all up with a bow, to just have some final text here to end with. So that's my design board. The way that I actually work with this, if that's helpful for you, is I just start building these as artboards in Illustrator. And while I could do this all in After Effects, it's much faster to work out sort of the problems and the details here in Illustrator for me, because I'm more comfortable in that software. So that is the benefit of making sure you know what you're creating before you jump into the animation software. So how this started is, let me hide some of this stuff here. You can see I was exploring my type and colors in here. Each one of these is just an artboard. And the same, and I just go kind of column by column, row by row, and start to think through what should these look like. And anytime I'm ready to move on to a new one, I just use that tip we talk about where I grab my artboard tool, make sure everything's unlocked, and then I just make a copy of it and then make any changes that I want to make. So this helps me iterate quickly, but at the same time giving a very accurate visual reference for me as I move into animation, along with some notes on kind of how these scenes might transition. To get that actually into my process book, I just copied them all onto a larger artboard and exported that out. Okay, so that is kind of where I'm at now. I think from here I'm ready to move into the animation process. So I will see you in that video.